This part here has also been removed, the part behind the wheel arch, and as we can see, further holes and rot holes in this rear part here as well that holds the rear suspension. And it looks like there's a hole here where the chassis actually joins onto that section. Not quite sure how it should be as yet, but once we get the outer arch that will come down here, we'll be able to see where we need to join to match up the metal rear of this light rear quarter of the boot. But before we do that, we obviously need to replace whatever's damaged here, and it looks completely rotten, so we'll just go a little bit further to see where we end up with this. As long as we can get back to some true metal somewhere, then we can carry on and move forward. By having removed the cover plate on top of the rear suspension, we're now working to remove the bumper iron on the back. We've had to grind off both the nuts because it's rusted on solid. We've also had to snap the back of the bolt on here so we can slide this section off, and we're now working on the front section. So once this is clear, we'll come back and see what we need to take off. Right, now we can see the full extent of the rust and the cover up that was done on this section of the rear suspension. We've had to use the air chisel to cut it all away, and so now we're going to remove this section, and that's what we're left with here. So this is the part that we're going to need to look at repairing. There's loads of additional weld, silicone and everything to cover up. You can just see the mess that this was, that actually went through an MOT for goodness knows how. You can see it's literally, the suspension things have pulled straight through. So hopefully when this is all renewed, then we should be up and running again. The rear section of the chassis, and we've bought a new piece to go along here. You can buy the end section. Finishes about at this point here. However, I think this might be longer than the section is, and we may have to put a filler piece in between. What we're doing to try and remove this piece is slice all the way along in different sections, and then bending out each section so that we can get back to this base metal here. And this is no doubt spot welded on, and we'll have to find and remove the spot welds, but it's easier to peel it a little bit like a can to actually find the spot welds, because when it's completely rusted it's very difficult to actually find the spot welds. Further on, we've also noticed that the boot on this section here where it joins onto the chassis is pretty much gone. It would be possible probably to repair it because the rest of the floor is okay. However, it's quite a funny shape, so for £100 in 2014 where we are now, it's probably easier just to buy a new boot to go in there. And we've also found that the rear chassis, which should be welded to this valance, the rear valance, is not on there, and it may have, with the boot being damaged, this being very weak, we feel that possibly that this strengthener up here has actually got a slight twist in it. So we're gonna, I've checked it against the other side looks straight, so we'll have to knock this down or make sure it is where it should, make sure it goes back where it should be when we put on the replacement part here. Right, just as my battery drill for drilling spot welds has come to an end, I think I'm going to call it a day for today. But as you can see, we've cut away part of the arch to square things off a little bit to make it easier to repair. We've come back and found some pretty good metal here, but further in is still not very strong, so I'm probably going to cut further back here, and we're going to have to make a section to go in here because the replacement part actually only comes to a certain point. Just try and get it in roughly in place, so you can see there's a gap between the two. so that's obviously going to need to be put right and repaired. The top section is actually better, so we will be able to join up on this top section here because it's not so bad underneath here. If I can actually show you, there's still some of the zinc plating still on, so it's just pretty much surface rust on here. So, but we're going to cut down, obviously cut slightly this way. Cut slightly this way so we can repair in here. The way we've been trying to get this off, which is incredibly difficult because this is welded along this edge, spot weld along this edge, and it's very difficult to get a drill in here, so we're having to drill from underneath. We've managed to split the section, so at least we can peel it back hopefully from there on when the drill's recharged. And as you can see, we sliced up and literally peeling it away. The boot, as you can see now, the damage that was actually on the boot, we've made it a little bit worse, but the damage was to the point where yes, it needed to be replaced, so we'll be replacing that. We took the card section off that fills in the edge of the boot, and we found that there was an actual L section on here which is actually easier to remove, and it also means that we can quite easily repair with another new L section going in there, so we get a solid joint. So what we're doing now is removing the spot welds and peeling off this L section so we can remake that section and pop that in, because this is 100% solid up to a certain point. Down here it's a bit suspect, so we're going to need to look to see whether we need to put a small section in on the very end there to fill it in. So what we did in the end is we sliced across here and we've removed the rest of this L section here. We've got this little bit at the top to do. So just another quick update. What we've done is we've sliced off this section here now, this chassis section, the rear chassis section, so it's nice and straight. We've removed the L section from up here, which we're going to remake now and stick that on, and also we're going to put on the bottom section here where it attaches to the boot. So this is the L section ready to be cut out from the main sheet. We're doing more than we actually need because we're going to need some from the other side as well, I'm sure, so when it comes round to it we'll have it already done. And this is the small section at the bottom of the boot and bottom of the strengthener that actually welds to the boot section. So we've just cleaned up the area where we're about to put on the spot welds, and we've also punched a number of holes along this edge to fix the new part that's going into the boot. This is the new section that's going to go into the boot, and it's been sprayed up with weld through spray so it won't go rusty after we've done it. Welded this section on, this L section, onto the chassis leg, so when we come to fit it, it will already be on there. And obviously we need some cleaning up to do on the plug welds that we've done there, but that will go on something like that. And then we've just got the section to fill in here between the two, between the chassis that's on the car and the chassis leg that's yet to go on. Right, so I've just put the chassis leg in place, and I've also put the bumper iron on so we can actually work out where it's going to go. The hole on the end here actually gives you a good idea when you put the front plate on, because obviously it should match up with that hole. And we've had to actually make the front panel that they give you fit the rear chassis, because the fit is an absolute terrible fit, and we've had to hammer it to actually make it the right shape. So we can also see now the real distance between these two parts, which needs to be sorted out, and also the small slice in the top there that we're going to have to put in the triangle section. So that's how it is at the moment. Right, so we've fitted the triangular section in here with the end of the chassis so that it'll fit the chassis leg. Right, so the chassis leg has now been welded on the triangle part. So I've just clamped this the rear plate on top of the chassis leg here, and we're just putting the plug welds in now. So there's the top plate welded on, and we've also welded round the suspension and the bumper irons. So before we finalise putting the boot in, we've got a few plug welds to do with this boot support, the line down here. So we're going to whip through these and then look at putting the wing on, because the wing will actually cover all of this and we won't be able to get to it afterwards.